With me on the line is Ed Pearson, and Ed's from Ontario, and he became a reverend in the Church of the Universe in the last few years, and Ed's also sort of a legal expert of some sort. How are you doing today, Ed?
Oh, not too bad.
Now, Ed, you worked for some years in the legal field. Can you tell us just briefly what that was all about?
Oh, I worked in a criminal law office in Montreal for Bear and Associates. There was about 17 lawyers, strictly criminal law.
So you did a lot of research for these guys, that type of stuff?
A lot of research, wrote a lot of factums.
Nice. So it made you, probably almost as familiar with the law as any lawyer, or maybe even more familiar than with a new lawyer and stuff like that, I would imagine.
I had a title there in French. It was the Conseil des Avocats.
What's that translate to?
It means counsel to attorneys.
There you go. I like it. And one thing Jesus said was, "Woe to you, teachers of the law, for you have hidden the keys of the law and forbidden all from entering." And that's been something I've kind of felt with the modern legalese out there. It's really hard for the average person to kind of break through a lot of the way they talk, the way the language is presented, and stuff like that. And that's been a real burden to people that want to present themselves in court instead of hiring a lawyer. You met a couple of individuals that were doing just that, Brother Walter, Brother Michael, in court one day when you were pursuing something else. Isn't that right?
That's right, in the Federal Court of Canada.
And through that, you became involved in the fight to legalize marijuana as a religious sacrament, as well as other marijuana-related cases.
Yeah, that's what got me started, for sure, in that particular area.
Huh. And let's just briefly talk about some of the other cases that you're currently taking care of. You've been working with American drug war refugees, Steve Covey and his wife, Michelle, and you've somehow got them an appeal on the decision on their refugee case. Isn't that right? That's
right. They're now being permitted to seek a judicial review in the federal court.
And Marco, I don't know Marco's last name, but you've been representing him basically saying that the earlier court decision that said that the marijuana laws are null and void is still in fact in action, and the marijuana laws are null and void, but you just need a judge to recognize that.
That's about it. We just need a judge to recognize that, because once they were declared unconstitutional and of no force in effect, that was it, and they remained that way for a period of time, like some in one case for over a year, another case for 3 years. So
wow.
Wow. The end of it.
And is that kind of the extent of the marijuana cases you're working on currently, or have you got some other stuff going on?
Well, I've got the 4 or 5 marijuana cases that I'm just pushing ahead on, and I have other matters going on and other cases for other people, which, I'm not at liberty to discuss.
Right. And you've also been helping Brother Walter and Brother Michael clean up their somewhat convoluted religious challenge.
Yeah, I've been trying. It's a challenge.
Yeah, well, they have their own way of doing things, and great guys, I love them both, but it seems it's just kind of more complicated than it needs to be to deal with the subject of cannabis and religion and the law. And because of that, I've approached Ed some time ago about the possibility of challenging the cannabis laws, and Ed suggested we file a motion. Maybe you could explain to people what a motion is and what that's all about.
Well, a motion is a notice to the opposing party, and also, it's considered a motion application to the court, asking them to resolve a specific issue, whether it's constitutional or the strict question of law. And you go to the superior court, or the court that has jurisdiction, naturally, to rule on the constitutionality, and present your issue to that court and ask that court to render a decision. And there's quite a bit entailed to it. You make the notice of application, the application itself, then it requires a factum or a memorandum of your argument, and your opponent submits his, and you have an opportunity to reply. And it's a long, drawn-out process. It's not something that you just throw in the court and just head back and say, "Oh, well, they're going to decide for me." They're not going to.
How long do you think the process can take?
Well, it depends. If you're in a civil case, it usually takes much longer than criminal cases. A civil case can sometimes take anywhere from 7 months to a year before it's finally resolved, and it goes to trial on the issue, unless it's just the motion itself. And then if it's just a simple motion, then it can be resolved in front of either a protonotary in the federal court or a single judge of the court, and they can resolve the issue.
Mm-hmm.
then of course it's open to appeal, which either side wins or loses. You have an opportunity to appeal to the higher court. So this takes time also, and there's delays. Everyone has 60 days and 90 days, and then an additional 30 or 60 days to submit your factum. So it's a prolonged, difficult process. So for the average guy, I try to keep everything I do in very simple, plain language. I don't believe in legalese.
There you go. Well, that makes it all the better. There's not as much paperwork to go through. Now, the basis of the motion that Ed has filed on or has written on my behalf is basically a freedom of religious thing. The Canadian Charter already guarantees the freedom of religion, and you've based this on a precedent set over Sunday shopping.
That's right.
Could you explain a little bit about that precedent?
Well, that was in the Big M Drug Mart case. And that case is, it's rather clear for the proposition. If you say, well, there is a law constitutional, and it takes the court to declare it. And in this particular case, we've had declarations that the law is unconstitutional in others and medical senses. But now what we're looking for is to say, listen, if the law is unconstitutional, as against, in reference to criminal matters, certainly, and when you have a freedom as opposed to a right, there is a distinction in law between freedom, a freedom that's inalienable freedom, and a right. A right is a sort of a privilege that you can take advantage of or not. But a freedom, it's there, and nobody can move it away from you.
Yeah, just so that the people about my level of smartness understand, the issue was Sunday shopping somehow prevented freedom of religion because you were forced to be closed on Sunday, whether you wanted to, whether that was your day of worship or not. And so, in a sense, it prevented freedom of religion by forcing and allocating a certain day. Yeah, but
how it applies in this case is very simple.
Yeah.
If one of the sacraments of the church, of our church, of the Church of the Universe, is marijuana, okay, and then the oils or derivatives thereof, then certainly, if you pass a law that says, listen, you can't possess this, then naturally you're jumping in and saying, listen, your religion, that's fine. You have a religion, but we're taking away the tenets of your religion, and if your religion falls, we don't care.
Yeah.
And this is what we're fighting at. We're saying if you do this, if this prohibition is to be maintained,
they have to show harm to society at large, that
right.
Somehow our use of cannabis as a sacrament would affect society at large in a damaging way.
Well, I don't know. They wouldn't have to. You see, there's a question of harm now. The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled any insignificant amount of harm is sufficient to bring it within the criminal domain. But you're looking at a different issue here. You're talking about a religion.
Yeah.
And your faith and your belief in your religion. How do you examine into that? Actually, the courts cannot. If you say this is my faith and this is my religion, of course, it doesn't mean you can say, well, my religion is to go and murder somebody every day.
Yeah, of course, they were infringing on somebody else's rights.
But if you're saying that's right, but if you're not, you're just saying this is a tenet of our religion. This is a sacrament. This that begins there and ends there.
That's right. And now that they've made a situation in Canada where close to 1,000 people have medical exemptions, it doesn't really take too much movement in the legal world to make an exemption for some more people.
Well, actually, and on the religious side, religious side of religion, it goes back much further. We have thousands and hundreds of thousands of people